Thank you. Some of you might have seen this on your Facebook feed. I thought it was really cool. I saw it come through yesterday, and I thought, boy, that really is an awesome little tidbit for all of us. So building positive relationships in sport is what I've been given to speak to you about. I look around the room, and we've got a lot of experience here. So I think what I may be sharing with you, I want you to take to those less experienced referees, because for the most part, you guys are all pretty good at building relationships. Relationships are connections, and connections with human beings. Simple? Well, for many, not so much. And you guys all know of people in our association, referees that struggle with human relationships. How do you feel about the relationships you have in sport with coaches? That's a tough one. Players, fellow referees. We're not alone when we walk into a gym. There's a team, and we all have to work as a team. Everything we do in life, and that reflection comes into our refereeing. As humans, it's suggested that 85% of our skills are determined by our social skills. So our ability to interact. So this comes from a human resources point. Who are we talking? Somebody in our group last night was into human. Oh, it was Kyle. He's not here today. But when bosses are hiring people, it is often more about their social skills and things outside of the marks they got in university. It's about the other pieces of the human being. So it's how we interact positively and effectively with others, so relationships. How we cultivate relationships with all of these humans is a reflection of how we work as referees as well. Bear with me, my technology is limited. Okay, don't take offense, please, but this has been my thing that I've been saying lately. And it's not so nice, but it's very true. Any monkey can learn the rules and the mechanics. So we need to be more than that. We need those rules, we need those mechanics, but any monkey can learn them. What makes us different than a monkey is common sense and the capabilities to create human connections. So to manage those rules, bring those rules to the game as a human being. That's what makes us from an entry-level referee that knows the rule book to a great referee. And any of you guys who've heard the good versus great, we just went through it at the level 4. If you look at all those traits, the good versus great referee, most of those are far beyond knowing the rules and knowing the mechanics. They're knowing the human side of the game. So of course, monkeys aren't so good at the psychological part that Andre talked about early. They can't do that. They can't do the human side. So the big one, building a relationship with a coach. In the work we do with the level 4 clinics, we have high-level coaches speak to us every year. And repeatedly we are told from the high-level coaches, they need us to have a relationship with them. We're not inviting them to our house for dinner. But in the old days, and Greg can attest to this, that in the old days we used to go and have a beer with the coaches after the match. The social activities were referees and coaches together. We're quite separate now. And we need to find a way to build a relationship with the coach. Sandra Lamb said it last year at this very presentation that she really thought a lot of referees struggled with that. How can we effectively open the door to build a relationship with a coach? Well, we start outside a match. As Andre mentioned, in beach, they're quite interactive with the players. In indoor, we're not. We're not interactive with the coaches. We're not interactive with the players in our game. So we have to work outside the sport. It's a challenge. It takes work. Take the opportunity to get to know them when there's not a pressure situation. So you walk into a U Sport match. You're there in your civvies, you're there to watch. You walk into a U Sport match and there's a high school coach sitting in the stands. without invading privacy or being a creeper or interrupting what they might be doing. If you see that they're working, leave them alone. But if they're just sitting and watching, why not stop by and say hi? Try and find a common ground. It's amazing how that will open a door. Of course, use common sense. I connected myself with many youth sport and CCAA coaches because I was a mom of a player. Or my son played high school, so I know a coach from there, a couple of coaches from there. Played college, I know coaches from there. So I have a different relationship. I also volunteered at a lot of bingos back in the day, and I got to know a whole bunch of players. I was volunteering bingos with Pandas and Bears back in the day when I did a lot of those matches. Greg probably doesn't want to hear that when he coached at Calgary, but I got to know them as human beings. So even though Danielle might be pissed at a call that I made, she still has, we have a certain relationship that builds a different respect. So I encourage you to take the opportunities to get to know them. Not all have the opportunity that I did as a parent, but it's a connection outside the match. My husband, socially, I would say, he's not here so I can talk about him and I won't let him see the video. Socially is definitely more awkward than I am. But a few weeks ago, we were at an event where there was a high school coach that there had always been a bit of animosity between them. They never had really big issues, but Larry said, he doesn't like me, I don't like him. End of story. But it ended up, they bumped into each other in the hallway, and somehow Larry said something to him about, wow, this event is really running well, you guys did a really good job. And he was amazed at how nice the guy was. He said, he's really nice, and I think he likes me. It was as simple as saying, this event's is running really well. So that, I can tell you the next year when he sees that same coach, they have a relationship. And it's going to make for a different interaction during a match. Small talk. Yeesh. A lot of people don't like it. They're not comfortable with it. But we have to do it. And it's an aid to building a relationship. So it's a skill we have to practice. We have to build that relationship, and it's a way to do it. You learn how to do it, put it in your referee toolbox with all the other things that we do as a referee. It's a positive interaction and brief that you can quickly find a common interest. You never know. Maybe he's a skier, you're a skier. Something that if you see something on their shirt, coach's shirt that says he does downhill skiing. No way, you ski? So do I. Start the conversation. And of course, we all have volleyball in common. Coaches do, we do. That's a common love. So that's a great place to start as well. So small talk skills. This is really very basic. And I think as I said earlier, to the people in the room, it's maybe not as important to worry about these details. But please share them with those less experienced referees. And we all know that we have some very awkward referees in our membership. So think about how do they approach a coach? If they can't even have a conversation with another referee, how in the hell are they supposed to go to a youth sport coach? Oh my God. They're up there. This referee is down there. So these are all tools that you can learn. Listen, make eye contact, good handshake. Don't bring up negative things. Keep it positive. Don't try and impress the person you're talking to. Find common ground, make a few comments, open a discussion, and move on. Reading body language. Dear God, if you're getting body language, or they're backing up, conversation's over. They're busy. They want to go do something else. So body language will tell you it might be inappropriate to continue. I've heard people who don't know how to do small talk say really inappropriate things. So it's like you go to a funeral and you've got to say something to the person that just lost their mom or dad. Sometimes if you don't know what to say, you don't say anything. Like 2 words, I'm sorry. But people will say stupid things because they don't know what to say. I've heard things like, and these are all from years ago, so nobody in the room is going to know these individuals. I had a referee one time that went to a player that didn't play in a particular match. And as he was shaking this player's hand, he said, "Good job of sitting on the bench." Yeah, not a good thing to say. Like, I was supervising at that event and the coach came over to me and, what the hell? Yeah, the guy just didn't know what to say, so he said the wrong thing. When asked about a line call, a referee said, "I can't see that far." Yeah, probably not a good response. When hearing parents constantly commenting behind you about ball handling, when a referee turns around and says, "Why don't you shut the F up?" Not really appropriate. That's not the kind of relationship we want to build. Of course, we all want to say something in those circumstances when we've got somebody behind you, but we have a code of ethics. Profanity is never part of it. So we have an inside voice and we have an outside voice. Know when to use the inside voice and when to use the outside one. Sean helped me with this one. When questioned by a captain for repeatedly calling a setter for a mishandled ball, the referee responded, "Your players need to pass better." Okay, no, that's an inside voice. So how self-aware are you? So consider... No. Well, it was Sean. Please consider the consequences of every word that you speak. You can make a good impression or you can make a bad impression. You can open the door to a relationship or you can slam it pretty hard. Work on gaining life experiences, be observant, and read the body language of those around you. Mastering the art of common sense. I think one of the ways that we can learn small talk the best is by watching other people do it. It's an art form to small talk. Like you see politicians, they can do it. Yeah, some smiling. Some are better at it than others. But it is difficult. In general, in a small talk situation, you're not going to want to bring up to a coach the last difficult loss. Like he wouldn't want to walk into a U Sport match and Lori's already done playing and she's sitting in the stand and go over to her and say, "Wow, that was really a crappy way to finish," or something like that. That's not a positive experience. It's got to be positive. And if they did just lose, God, leave them alone. So common sense there. It's not really a natural trait for everybody to be a good conversationalist. We've got to learn. So some of the other ways to get to know a coach on a different level, we've always said that coaches should try refereeing. Have we ever tried coaching? Understanding their direction, what it's like from their end. We need to appreciate the hours that they put in. Communication skills are important. Take an opportunity to volunteer. They've got practices. Go and referee their practices. Man, no better way than to open up a door with that. Has anybody done that? Gone and said to a college and say, a college, university, high school for that matter, "Hey, you're scrimmaging. Can I practice my signals and come out and work?" man, you've got that coach right here if you do that. You've opened the door to a conversation that is outside the pressure of the match. Pressure on you and pressure on them. One of the things I also hear a lot from coaches is when we avoid interacting with them, we appear to be arrogant. And I can really see that, them misunderstanding, because we don't know what to say, so we avoid them. So if you walk into a gym, you know, when Greg was coaching at U of C, if I walked into a gym and I didn't even say hi, he'd go like, it's her problem. You want to open the door and begin a relationship. So coming across as arrogant is definitely not what we want to do. As referees, building the relationship, we must also build trust by putting our best performance forward. And we've heard a lot about that today. If we appear not to like our job, or we're there primarily for the money, coaches will lose their trust in our decisions. So that is not going to build a relationship of any kind. And when you think about the relationship of us and coaches, we both want the same thing when it comes down to it. We want the game to be played fairly. So we're at this for the same reason, coaches with coaches. Continuing further, the first encounter when we go into a gym can go a long ways to either creating a positive or a negative relationship that can last a long time. First impressions are lasting impressions. So master that art of first impressions. It's more than just simply showing up. It's how you shake their hand. It's how you greet them. It goes without saying that you should look professional. That's our first impression. If you come in looking disheveled and running, you're not prepared, right away their spidey senses are going, uh-oh, this guy's not prepared. And I've heard that from high-level coaches. If you come in rushed, you've got them worried. Your body language, your voice should be confident but friendly. And it goes a long way to begin by greeting a coach in a human way. But remember, when they're on the bench, they're being professionals. They're already in their timing of the clock is running. Once that clock is going, that's not the time to talk about the wife and kids. The wife and kids you talked about out in the hallway, if you happen to see them, if you know them. Once you're courtside, it's professional. They're in professional mode, and so should you be. It's a time to introduce you and your partner, and I think Malcolm spoke a bit about that, going together with your R2 to both coaches, spending the same amount of time, maybe mentioning something specific to the match, not about the wife and kids. It's professional, about the match. Coaches are hyper aware of how we behave as referees when we walk into a gym. Unless they really, really know us well. They see Scott, Regina sees Scott walk into the gym, they probably go, yes, we know who's here, it's okay. But for most of us, we walk into the gym, their spidey senses are watching what we're doing. Effectively communicating during a match. And you can build a relationship with the coach during a match. As an R2, something as simple as sharing a potential positional fault. You know, your setter's moving too fast. Quietly saying something like that. You're building a relationship. Rather than the first time the setter moves too fast, tweet. That doesn't go very far to build a relationship. Eye contact from R1 to the coach, and knowing if I go to a coach or two that I knew really well when I did high-level ball, they might go, I miss or not miss, I never missed. There was a questionable ball handling call, and I might get from the coach, and I'll make eye contact and nod. That's a relationship that I've built. But that was built far outside of that match. So you have to start with some basics there. Building trust by always having unquestioned integrity on and off the court. It seems so simple to say that, but I throw my hands in the air because it seems that the issues that we have in our province, in our country, are not about rules. When it comes to dealing with referees, it's not about rules. It's often about integrity and relationships and saying stupid things, simple stuff like that. So it is far beyond just the rules. We have to have empathy, feeling, understanding for the game, the needs of each match. So we're not robots up there. We do a junior high match. Obviously, it's different than a U Sport match. You're going to have a different feeling. If we were robots, we'd call them exactly the same way. So that's the human side of our game. The monkey would call them exactly the same way. So don't be the monkey. It was discussed earlier as well that empathy allows a referee to distinguish between frustration and dissent. So when it gets to aggression, I forget how Andre said it. I know I wrote it down that frustration to aggression, somewhere in there, I thought it was a very well said word. But we have to understand and appreciate the reaction of a player who misses a match-winning serve. Yeah, I'd be pissed too. So as a referee, we've got to understand that the very best referees understand the game and the empathy that is needed for every game. So again, within the parameters of a match, using body language and eye contact, we build a relationship in that way. Sometimes it's not going to happen. Sometimes you can try all you want, and it's not going to be sunshine and lollipops. There are just some coaches that really don't want to have that relationship. We try. I think most coaches are starting to understand that's a good thing. If we start more, or we work harder to understand that, I think they will. But you all know that there's a few coaches. I know I can think of a couple that really don't want to have coffee with me ever, and will probably mumble bad things when they're walking by me. I'm not going to build a human relationship at that point. They're not interested. We just have to stay professional. I think one of the best ways to have a coach respect you is by respecting them. Sounds pretty simple. With the athletes, our goal is to establish a working relationship with athletes. And most of what I just said about building a relationship with a coach also goes to an athlete. There is maybe a little bit of difference there. We have to be able to see the game through the athlete's eyes more to build a relationship. And it also depends on the age of the athlete. Dear God, please, if you're a 50-year-old man, please be cognizant of how you're building a relationship with a 16-year-old girl. It's common sense, but it isn't so common. With a junior high kid, you're going to build a different relationship than you are with a U Sport athlete. But think about working on building a relationship. You might get that player at a junior high level that you build a relationship with that is going to say, you know what, referees are pretty nice. I think I want to be one of those guys. And they're going to join us. So it's always good to have a relationship with all levels of players, but common sense must prevail while always being friendly. Your first interaction with an athlete in a match is probably the captains at the toss. I wrote a whole document on that a while back because I watched referees call the captains for the toss, and they're there for 10 minutes. What the heck are they talking about? Keep it short. You've got a few things to say. Introduce yourselves. You know, my start point is this captain. You guys know each other. Introduce yourselves. My name's Debbie. I'm going to be your R1. Don's going to be your R2. That, either of you, the libero, make sure that piece is in there. That's the only piece, rule-wise, that really comes into it, unless there's something unusual going on. You know, you're at a tournament, it's a 9 a.m. game. Well, it's best of 3, there's caps, there's no caps, that kind of stuff, that's important to share. But they need to know the rules. So we're not going through, the line is blue, this and that, like jewelry. That's in the rule book. We don't need that. Get to the point, get it over with and done. But be friendly. It is also not a place to try out your latest joke. Please. Save your comedy for the comedy act or in the evening in the hotel. One guy might find you funny, but out of a group of 20 people, probably only one. So the other 19 don't want to hear it. So just no. Again, I've got in here, common sense must prevail. So referees, and I said this before, referees were passionate as the athletes and the coaches. We just don't share their passion for the outcome. We don't care who wins. They do. But the passion throughout is for volleyball. So take that passion, use it outside the court. So it's a foundation for our human relationship. Now with a fellow referee, everybody in this room are people that I know make relationships with other referees easily. I look around the room and I know that. It gets to the point for me, and I'm sure for a lot of you guys, that I look at a webcast from PEI and I look at the back side of somebody and they make a signal, a side out signal, and I go, oh, that's Joe. I know all the referees. So most of you guys are probably the same. Some of us know each other that well. Off court, we have less of an association. You can build a relationship with a less experienced referee by sharing your knowledge in a respectful way. So I think to the group here who are more experienced, getting to know the younger referee is what I want you to do, to build a relationship with a younger referee. That's important, because when push comes to shove and there's a problem, that relationship is going to make it easier for them to talk to you and you to talk to them. You need to be careful you're not that referee that no one wants to work with. And I'm sure we all come up in our brains right away with this person, this person, this person. Don't be those people. Be the team player. And that, again, it's a relationship thing. To gain the respect of your fellow referee, you've got to be able to accept that your decision might be incorrect sometimes. So if they say, yeah, well, and they got to do it in a respectful way as well. But if they say, oh, you overruled that lines judge, well, that lines judge was correct. You've got to be able to accept that sometimes. Off-court empathy is important in developing positive relationships with others. For example, when a referee's made a major mistake, colleagues with empathy work with them, offer support. So you were R2, your first referee just had a really bad match. You don't just walk out of the gym. You make sure that that person is okay. You talk after the match. Build a relationship with that person. Give them some confidence to get back up on the stand again, because we've all been there. Andre mentioned, that he's had a match or two in his career that might have gone south a bit. My God, so have I. But those are the mistakes that we all learned from. In dealing with other people, empathy and respect are very closely linked. So also understanding the personality of a referee you're working with goes beyond the playing venue. What's that person like? Get to know them. Get to know their situation. You married? Got kids? Oh, how old are your kids? You know, I'm going to bond with somebody with kids now because I have grandkids. Oh, how old are your kids? Oh, I've got a 2 and a 4-year-old grandson. What is your, you know, there's places to build a relationship, and that's what I'm encouraging you to do. If you show you believe or have confidence in another person, they'll tend to have confidence in themselves. So that goes to that's building a relationship in a match. Good call. You did a good job. You've got confidence in them, even if you really don't. Even if you're kind of stringing it a bit just to get them feeling good, that's important. That's communicating and building a relationship by saying, nice job, good job. And the key to raising self-esteem in others is to make them feel important. So, Dawn, you did a great job in that match last week. It was tough, but you did really well. Okay, I'm building her self-esteem. Matters not to me, but I'm building a relationship with her. And we all see webcasts now. We all watch each other's matches. What would it take to send a text or a quick note? Wow, that was a tough match. You did a really good job. What would it take? In a social situation, building a relationship. Years ago, I can remember when we had our big first event in Toronto, 2012, and we had all the provinces come, and sorry, Andre, I'm going to pick on Quebec a little bit, but it's a language thing a lot. So the Quebec officials sat together, the Saskatchewan referees sat together, and that drove me nuts. So I would go and I'd sit with Quebec for a while, and I'd sit with Saskatchewan, and I said, you know, tried to get the Quebec kids, but it was harder for them because a lot of them, English was not their first language. I said, who cares? Volleyball is our language. So when you walk into a room, rather than always sitting with the person you know, sit by someone new. Sit by a young referee. Share your experiences. You know, if it's a really young referee, they're going to go, wow, Stephanie came and sat and talked to me. You know, and she's a level 4. I just started. She doesn't even know who I am. It goes a long way. So make a real effort to get to know your fellow referee. All ages, all levels. Start with small talk and then work from there. Never make your entertainment talking about other referees, and I know we do. God, I know we do, but we shouldn't do it. Unless it's positive. If the referee's in the room, that's one thing. With the assigner, and I threw this one in at the last minute, because that's a whole other entity now. How many people are assigners in the room? That's damn near everybody. Wow. Have you ever thought, and I mean, how many people have done it in the past? Yeah, so if you take, there's very few people that haven't assigned in their career. Those people who haven't assigned won't get this. They won't get this piece. But those of us who have assigned, they know that there are dynamics. It's a Tetris game. And if that doesn't happen, this can't happen. If that happens there, then this can't happen. Why did I get that match? Well, because this, and this happened. So if you're given an assignment, please have some common sense and take it for what it is. Why am I working with that person? They're not very good. Well, maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe that the assigner has put you with that person that's not very good, so you can help them. Not to screw you. It's not about doing that. So have a little, recognize the task of the assigner. Be available when requested. Your candidates, level 4 candidates, this is something, all of these pieces are beyond the rules and the mechanics that you need to have moving forward. If you don't have all these pieces, and that's why we go for with the level 4 candidates, we go for supper together a few times. We get to know them because we want to know if are they good human beings? Can they build relationships? With a mentor. Now, looking here, you've either, to everyone in the room, most of you have probably mentored. Or, of course, if you haven't mentored, you've been mentored by someone. So having that relationship with a mentor is a really good idea too. I do a lot more of that now than I do refereeing. And it's knowing a bit about the person that I'm mentoring is critical. Beyond that, watching body language. My God, and this is something, I'm going to pick on the men in the room. In the past, and Andre talked about how we've evolved in mentorship. There was a time where most females in this country could say, yes, I've cried when I was evaluated by that person. It was just a fact of life. That doesn't happen anymore, or it shouldn't. It shouldn't, and if you, as a mentor, see that you've gone far enough from the body language, you've given some feedback, it was a really bad match, it was a tough match. Watch the body language of the individual. That's the human part of mentorship. Watch the body language. Is it time to stop? Is it time to move on to something positive? Even though you have 20 more points because it was a really rough go, take a look at the human side of mentorship. And we also have to know where a referee's head is at. And you know, we talk about that in level 4, that sometimes candidates are sent to us and they just lost custody of their kids the day before they went to the clinic. Okay, that's not giving us the human side of that individual. We need to know that stuff. I think one of the most important pieces is a mentor is looking for a referee that has the ability to build human relationships. Some closing points on this. I'm afraid for the next generation, in all honesty, and that's how it makes me sound really old, but I think technology has really impacted human relationships. We text. We don't talk on the phone anymore or have face-to-face conversations. So I don't know what that's going to look like for you guys moving forward, but that human connection, we're not texting from the stand. We're having human relationships. So please work hard to keep that. Don't let technology take over. We don't have the advantage of seeing body language, and emojis just don't cut it. It's a two-way street. Not everyone is interested in building that two-way street. I don't think anybody in here has been to my house for dinner. Maybe a couple of people. It's not that kind of relationship that we have as referees. I would say, some of my very best friends. I almost gave a liver to one. But when I had the interview, when you donate an organ, you have this, they have a lawyer, we have a lawyer. So the lawyers talk. So a lawyer called me and, how do you know her? Or well, we referee together. How many years have you known her? Well, I think at that time it was about 12 years. How often do you see her? Once a year, maybe once every 2 years. That's odd. But we're best friends. So you have relationships of all types here. I feel like I could sit with you guys all and have a great time, but to invite you to my house, probably not so much, because that's outside our volleyball world. But building the human relationship within volleyball is really important. So as referees, we learn that important social skill of acceptance of others, supporting our peers, and the value of competition and teamwork. Now, as someone who is, say, going through university and going to apply for their first job, being a referee is really a great thing to have on your resume. Why? Not because you learned the rule book, but because you know how to have human relationships. And that goes a long way for a boss. They want to hear that piece. If you're a good referee, you know how to work with human beings. You're not a robot. I love this saying. I found this a couple weeks ago. Consider that effective referees are like velvet-covered bricks. So the brick is the rule. The velvet-covered side is the human side. Any comments on any of that before I move on to the last bit here? I haven't put anybody to sleep yet, not that I noticed. So this last little bit's going to be about respect in relationships. Much like the Me Too movement that brought sexual abuse to the forefront, now we have the abuse in sports that's hitting the news. So all of that is kind of bubbling up and exploding in the media. It's very high profile now. The bottom line really is that prevention of harassment and abuse is everyone's responsibility, including referees. So each one of you. And it's not like you're harassers or abusers. Not you guys, but you may be aware of it going on. We're the gatekeepers to safety for not only our own membership, for our fellow referees, but for all the participants. Because we see a lot. We're there. We're everywhere in the game of volleyball. So that sheet you guys have all seen before. If you haven't, you got a copy of it. It's been around, I don't know, 5 years maybe, something like that. And it was something we put together that really hadn't been talked about it hadn't been talked about at all in our group. And I encourage you to read it over again. But I will tell you what I've kind of learned since we put that out there. I would like you to read it, and do you think anything applies to you? 99% of the people who read it say, that's not me, not me. But I considered the small examples of touching. You go to a scorekeeper and you lean over the shoulders or touch their shoulder. Well, if that scorekeeper is a 16-year-old girl, ew, she's creeped out by that. And inappropriate comments and jokes. The funny part was how many people had aha moments. And people from the Maritimes are very touchy-feely. The French are very touchy-feely. Right? Yeah, they are. So what we need to be is aware of what we're doing. So I had a guy from the Maritimes and he went, "Oh my God, Debbie, I didn't realize what I was doing. I thought I was being friendly." He's absolutely not a creeper. Absolutely not. But he didn't realize that he might be making people feel uncomfortable simply by touching their shoulder. So I ask you to be aware of your own actions, but also watch other people's actions. And if you saw Jordan go and touch Dawn's shoulder, you might go, "Jordan, that's not a good idea." I was talking to a referee from Ontario here a few months ago, and he said he's so hypersensitive to this whole situation now that he turns his back when he's working as a referee. He turns his back when the athletes are changing, if they happen to be changing there, because God forbid he might glance too long. I never thought of that one, but he said we really have to be so careful. Telling the jokes. If you're in a room with a group of friends that you know and you have a mutual understanding is one thing. But I remember that I was in a referee's room at a big championship, and there was a referee there that would have been in his 50s. And he's at one end of the big referee lounge, and he starts telling it was a very off-color joke. And I stopped him and I went, "Hey, what are you doing?" He goes, No, I'm telling Joe, right? He's right here. I said, "Look over there. There's two 17-year-old girls sitting, two 17-year-old female referees." "Oh, that's okay. They're referees." "You have a daughter. Would you tell that joke in front of your daughter?" "Ew, no, wouldn't do that." common sense, but it doesn't seem to click with everybody. So it needs to click with us, the rest of us in the room. It's not gender specific. I'm very aware of that. And we need to consider the weaker individual is the one that chooses the boundaries. So they're either older, younger, or higher up the food chain, like level 4, level 1. You know, you might not realize that you do have that power as a higher level referee. Does your creep meter go off? We all have a creep meter. If it goes off, I encourage you, if your creep meter is going off, to be hypersensitive to it. We all need to speak up when we see the behavior and further document situations. So that was something that was brought to me last year. Okay, something happened. It was really small, not a big deal. Document it. So I started a paper trail. Same as we do with coaches with the yellow cards. You know, if a coach is getting 15 yellow cards, yeah, it's not that bad. It's only a yellow card. But if he's getting 15 of them, there's an issue. If someone is getting letters written constantly about inappropriate behavior and just little things, might be time to have a chat with that individual. And the last bit, and these are more for your own information, the rule of 2. It's something that is new from the Coaching Association, and I think that maybe at the ZOC meeting you guys would chat about that. And initially when I sat in the first time and I heard this rule of 2, I thought of Brooklyn and my husband Larry driving to Grand Prairie together. So she's driving with a 60-something-year-old man by herself. So we need to consider if that's appropriate anymore. Just putting that to you guys for your association. This is something in coaching that is like, it's a law. I'm not sure how it's coming into our volleyball world, but I know in the Coaching Association of Canada, they're no longer allowed to just have a coach and an athlete together alone. We do that a lot in our world. Referees, like, I'll pick on Brooklyn because she's young and she gets paired with old guys. Is that right? Do we send them off to New Sarepta together? Well, yeah, okay. That's there for your information. Read through it. ZOC meeting can maybe talk about it. And the last piece is about the Respect in Sport helpline. And that is kind of the final piece to all of the harassment situations where we don't know what to do. And if someone comes to me and said, I'm in this situation, what do I do? That's where I would send them, because I'm not a professional either. So you've got that paperwork to take with you. So in closing, human relationships are extremely important to our referee, and our goal should be to work hard to foster them. And as an association, it's our responsibility to keep our relationships professional, but speak to those that are inappropriate. So you guys have power. Like there's a big group here. You're from across the province. We have to monitor ourselves. And now I also want you to go back to your associations and help the younger referees to build relationships with everyone in the sport. Look at that.